Before we get into what people told us in the survey, it's probably worth saying very briefly who we heard from. So this is a survey of about 185 voluntary sector leaders across, as you can see here, a really wide range of sectors. Health, disability and social care come out top, but also significant proportions from education, community, environment, mental health and the arts. You can see here, not one narrow slice of the sector. Worth saying that in our survey, and for many of the questions actually, people could choose more than one area. So if you're struggling with the maths and how all of that adds up to 100, that's the explanation. Age-wise, as we can see, this is largely a working, practicing leadership cohort, a lot of millennials, some proud Gen Xers coming up through that group as well, and a few Gen Zs coming into volunteer management as well, which is great to see. So I think we can conclude broadly, this isn't theoretical opinion, this is lived day-to-day digital reality for people actually running volunteering. This one is really all about the pressure points. 3 areas of questioning that we wanted to share with you that really exemplify the challenges that we're facing in volunteering at the moment. Some really interesting stuff here, we think. Love to know if you agree. Moving left to right, the single biggest challenge that people told us about that they were facing on stages of their volunteer journey was actually around impact, monitoring, reporting, evaluation, impact capture, proving value. This feels fascinating to many of us that have looked at these already. Recruiting new volunteers didn't even make the top 3. Perhaps we're in a time that where we're sort of finding volunteers, but maybe struggling to prove why it matters. Without good data around our programs, impact can be reduced merely to anecdote. So fascinating finding coming out top, but as you can see here, there's a basket of quite equal issues in volunteering, including management, communication, onboarding as well. So by no means the only significant challenge. Moving into the middle, recruitment targets, fewer surprises here perhaps. You know, as we talk to many people through our communities, younger volunteers often comes out as a key current recruitment target. Working professionals is often up there as well. Much of the growth that we've seen on platforms like Reach in recent years sort of reflects that kind of trend. And mature adults and retirees still very much a cornerstone of people's volunteering programs. What's really interesting about this bracket of results, and we'll see this on the next slide, is that when we compare recruitment methods that people are using with the targets that we have, there may be a little bit of a mismatch going on. I'll say some more about that on the next slide as we get there. But if we move to the far right, the top 3 current engagement challenges, 1 and 3 here feel like they're quite related, don't they? Volunteers reflecting that they're looking for more flexibility in how they volunteer, and perhaps leaders of volunteers experiencing a bit of a mismatch between volunteers' expectations and the organizations as well. So interesting question that we might ask ourselves here. Many of us in recent years have made many more efforts to be flexible and open to volunteers. But are we doing that at the expense of clarity and expectations? Are we inviting uncertainty there? Is there a bit of a gap between what we're looking for and what volunteers are looking for that we may be in and fueling? Not sure. Love to know what you think of that challenge. So just to conclude, some of you will have heard us talk in these forums about scale and efficiency and experience, 3 reasons to adopt digital in volunteering. Are we trying to grow something, scale? Are we trying to make life better for ourselves as volunteer managers, efficiency? Or are we trying to change the experience for volunteers? These 3 questions sort of reflect those kind of brackets, and we use that framework and structure a little bit in the report that we'll be sending you afterwards. Hopefully you'll find them really helpful. But overall, we think these findings are helping us to see where being busy and being effective start to drift apart a little bit. What do you think? Put thoughts in the chat. How are we recruiting volunteers? I mentioned there might be a bit of a tension here, a really interesting one that we think kind of comes out through this slide. In the last slide, we asked people who they were trying to recruit, and the answer was very future focused, younger volunteers, skilled working professionals. But when we look at how organizations are recruiting, we see a lot of effort still going into quite traditional methods. If you look at that middle bracket there, IRL in real life, and physical advertising, posters, word of mouth, those sorts of things. And none of those feel wrong. Of course, we know how effective they can be, but do they raise a question for us? If we are targeting digital native audiences like younger volunteers or perhaps skilled professionals, but we're using largely offline tools, are we in fact missing them? Are we in fact invisible to them? Is that a question that we might be worth asking ourselves? Interesting. Love to know what you think. Side note on these ones, one of the fascinating points that jumped out for me here was to note that there's almost 3 times as many, or there's just over 3 times as many of us advertising volunteering roles on our own website as using a national platform. Those national platforms at the bottom there, Govo and Do It, both polled about 21%, but 66% of us using our own website. We might be doing both, of course. You could select both answers here, but in a sector where national platforms seem to dominate so much of our debate, I thought that was really, really fascinating. Do we obsess too much about digital national infrastructure? Don't know. Thoughts in the chat. And then we also asked a range of questions about AI attitudes and adoption. I'm particularly interested to hear what Ross, our first speaker, has to say about kind of some of this, whether it chimes with the kind of things that he's hearing. But the headline here, we think, is bold adoption of AI, but perhaps weaker guardrails around how we're using it. This is where the story gets a bit more nuanced. There might feel like there's a little bit of narrative around the sector being a little bit behind when it comes to technology and AI particularly, but these findings we think show that AI is already very much here in volunteering. 4 out of 5 leaders already using it in some way. A large majority of organizations that they're working for already adopting AI in some way within their business. Efficiency is clearly the key driver. Repetitive tasks is an issue for almost half of volunteer managers, and the vast majority of people think efficiency is their top reason for using AI. So the biggest efficiency is the driver, but what really stands out here isn't so much excitement around AI, it's the values point underneath it, really, because the biggest concerns that people expressed to us in this survey weren't job losses, AI is taking over my job. It's about ethics and accuracy and data privacy and dependence on tech. And this tells us something really important, I think. People aren't just asking for the hype around AI, they're asking for leadership and clarity and ethical guardrails. And there's a finding in the survey results that we will send you, which suggests that there's quite a chunk of organizations where volunteer managers are working that don't really have clear policies around AI yet. So there's an element of flying blind for some.